welcome one, welcome all, welcome to another exciting episode of the General Gaming Show. I am Bridger. I'll be your General Gaming for this evening. I do that every time. I'm not sure why. Good. You have to have something. Every show needs something. I guess that's the thing we do at the beginning. I don't know. Anyway, yeah. I am Bridger. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We're glad you got a hold of the program, however you may have found it. Tell a friend or two, won't you? You could use some new people. We are almost live. That is to say, we are live, but most of the people watching and or listening will probably be getting the downloaded version afterwards. So, we are usually recording live on Sundays at 7. We got to push it again this week, but hopefully from now on it will still be Sundays at 7. That's when we normally record the show. Bridger15 on Twitch or the Sound Strategy Network on YouTube. We're in both places, and with that, I will turn and introduce my co-host, to Brett. Welcome back to the show, sir.
How's it going?
Not bad, not bad. Trapped on the surface of a sphere, but other than that, okay.
Taking it day by day.
Taking it day by day. Great. How's it going, sir?
Hey, Bridger. What's going on?
Not bad, not bad. I just rebuilt my computer. That is, upgraded it. And I had an experience that I had not had before, but now I am smarter. And I'm going to share this story with you so that you, too, will avoid frustration in the future. You see, it all started when I went to Newegg. And it all actually started when I got the pieces and put it all together. I upgraded the processor and I upgraded the video card, and everything was working great. And then I went to test the thing, and I threw Prime 95 on full force, and the processor was like, "Is it hot in here, or is it just me?" I was like, that is not right. I'm getting 80, 85 on stock heat, clock speed. That is not right, because I got a 3770K, an i7, and I'm using a Hyper 212 air cooler, which should be getting me down around 65, 70 max, according to everybody else who uses that combination. I'm looking it up on the internet, like, what is going on? And I thought maybe I applied the thermal paste wrong. So I went back and I reapplied it. Same problem. I went back and did it again, tried something different, tried using the credit card, method, tried the dot, tried the line, tried all kinds of stuff. Make sure the feet are firmly implanted into the motherboard. I can't figure out what the hell is wrong with this thing. And then about the 20th time I've taken this stupid heatsink out, trying to figure out why, it was cooling my 2500K super well, to the point where I was able to overclock it more than a gigahertz from the stock rate. The same cooler was having huge problems just getting stock levels on the 3770, and it shouldn't have. And I'm going through the 20th time rebuilding this stupid thing, and I finally go, huh, that bracket is quite loose, and so is that one, and so is that one. And so I took a screwdriver and I cranked down all the brackets so they weren't wiggling anymore. Now it's working. So, I can't believe it came down to something that's stupid and silly, and I didn't notice it because when it's on the board, it doesn't seem like the brackets are moving, but they obviously aren't compressing it as much as they should be against the CPU.
Okay. So it just wasn't like fully flush against the CPU.
Yeah, correct.
There's like a little bit of space in there, and he's like, "Yay! Stay in here!"
This is why thermodynamics was always my least favorite.
Of the dynamics?
Of the dynamics.
That's pretty good.
Fluid dynamics, pretty cool. Thermodynamics.
Whoa.
That's what I've been up to this week. But what are you guys doing? To Brett, what have you been playing recently?
I've been really into the beta of Skullgirls, hopping online and challenging people to the random matchmaking system is pretty good. I had played it back when it was on the Xbox once or twice and was just waiting for the PC release so that I could really sink my teeth into it, and that's why it's still in beta, is that there wasn't a release for the PC before.
Oh, okay. So this is a game that's being ported over?
Yes, from the Xbox Live Arcade to the PC.
Did they have a Kickstarter a while back for Skullgirls? Like for a new character or something?
Yes, it was for the port actually, and with the port there is a new character named Squiggly, as well as 2 new DLC characters that haven't been put into the game yet. So this is me as Valentine, the chick in the nurse's outfit, against a team of Peacock, who is this person I'm about to kill, and Sarabella.
So are you playing online matches, or is against a computer?
This is arcade mode, so this was just against a computer because I didn't want to record laggy footage.
So the online version is not yet up to code, the netcode?
Yeah. Well, no, the netcode's really good, and it's actually very interesting. So what most games do with netcode is they will try and guess based on your input and their input what's going to happen, and sometimes if there's a glitch, the game will have to backtrack on itself and say, well, now that we actually received this input and I'm not guessing anymore, I have to correct something that I said I did. And you'll see those weird glitches where it'll say that you hit somebody, and then it'll go back and say that you didn't hit somebody.
It sounds an awful lot like client-side prediction. Remember when they first got that added to Counter-Strike? Like, I don't remember, what was it, beta 8 or 7? Might have been 6, but I think it was one of those where they added client-side prediction, which is exactly what you're talking about. I got distracted when she pulled the thermometer out of her boobs.
And it pops, yeah.
What was that?
I love
the charm of the
Valentine.
game.
So anyway, what Skullgirls does is when you get a connection with somebody, you pick the frames of input lag that you want to have. And what that does is if you have a really bad connection, instead of having it going back and guessing all the time, what it'll do is it'll add a delay between when you press a button and when your action goes off. And in those frames that it's waiting, it can wait for your opponent's inputs so that you're seeing things resolved at the same time. So even though your inputs are a little bit slower, 5 frames in a fighting game is, it's still way less than a second, and it feels way better than having it glitch back on you. So there's a lot of cool bits of technology in this game. Like, if you're a person who likes fighting games, this was designed by Mike Z, who's big in the fighting game community. He does a lot of, I think, Blaze Blue and Guilty Gear were 2 that he was really known for. He plays big grappler characters. Like, he played a lot of Tager, a lot of Potemkin. And thus the grappler in this game was slightly overpowered, and they have fixed that a little bit in the update that came to the PC. But they definitely had a philosophy of let's not go all Street Fighter and make it so that you need to have the most dexterous fingers in the land in order to be able to pull off a combo. There's a lot of depth to it, but all of these cool things that you see happening where, I'm pushing somebody across the screen and then I go into the super where I love the flatline animation.
The flatline animation is really cool as far as just an awesome move.
Yeah, and it's, all of that stuff is way easier to do than special moves in other games when you compare them. So they made it all about your knowledge of the mechanics and when you should be doing different kinds of things rather than about finger dexterity.
Right, because at the high levels of play, that's what Street Fighter is. It's not it's not necessarily a contest of execution at that point. Everybody at the highest levels of play already can execute everything really well. It's a matter of outguessing and fighting your opponent from a strategic point of view or a tactical point of view, I guess.
Yes. So and there are people, there are high level tournaments and whatnot for this game, and I've watched some of the footage for them, and it's a fun watch.
How is the community for this game? Because I know fighting game communities are kind of infamous for being a little bit rough. I think I'll use that word.
Well, I'll say that there's no voice chat, so I don't know.
Okay. Fair enough.
Well, that's one way to do it.
All of the people that I play it with live are my friends, so they're all very degrading.
Okay.
All right. So that's Skullgirls. It's a little review. It's still in beta. How long do you think before it actually comes out? Did they give a release date or anything yet?
Yes, end of the month.
Oh, cool.
So I think the 20th is the official release, and what they've been doing is iterating on different game modes. So what they'll do is they'll unlock different parts of the game different days. Like when I first started, story mode was unlocked, but they didn't have any online at all, so I went and played story mode for a while, and then a patch came out and I could suddenly do online play, but I couldn't do story mode anymore. So it seems like they're funneling people to attack different sections of the game so that they can ferret out all of the bugs in different places on different weeks.
Gotcha. So, what have you been up to? Great? Anything good?
Mainly, I'm trying to learn how to play, and I want to stress the word "learn" how to play Hearts of Iron 3. It's a paradox. Yeah, it's a paradox game, so kind of like Crusader Kings, as what I was talking about the week before, but it's more focused on sort of the 1936 to 1946 era, and that's basically World War II. And it is intense, is one word to use for it. It is just so deep on like so many tactical levels. It's basically you're kind of controlling one of these nations in the world in this like era right before the world gets plunged into World War II, and you're doing things like managing your politics and diplomacy with other, diplomacy with other nations, and you're building armies, and you're researching tech, and you're sending spies around the world, and you're moving army divisions and setting up HQs and setting up theaters of war and planning tactical invasions of people, and it's crazy. It's really crazy, and I still don't understand it, even in the slightest. It's extremely complex.
It is. I tried at one point to learn this game. No. I tried to learn Hearts of Iron 2 and gave up. And then I tried to learn Hearts of Iron 3 when it came out, and then I tried again later, and then I tried again more recently, but then got turned into something else. I didn't give up. I just didn't have time to do it at the time. But I mean, let me pull up some of these. Yeah,
it's a spreadsheet game.
It's a spreadsheet game. That's a good way to put it. Just look at the top bar here. Let's just zoom in here on this. The top bar, you have energy, metals, rare materials, oil, all need to be kept track of. And then you have 3 numbers to represent your actual industrial capacity. One of these is how much you're actually using. The other one is your maximum possible capacity. And the other one is I have no fucking clue.
That's it's actually not that complex when you get down to it. Like, the first number is how much you are over your wasting, so you're not using.
Wasting. That's right.
Yeah.
84 and 27. So I see what it is. Yeah. So you can go over, and then it makes other things go slower. And then you also have to keep track of supply. And then fuel. Fuel is different from oil, by the way. And then you have money. And then you have, like, what is this? Population, manpower.
Manpower, yeah.
And I think this is diplomacy points, right?
Is that the envelope?
Envelope is diplomacy points.
Yeah.
And then
cameras, espionage.
There's cameras, espionage, and then you've got another thing here, which is checkered like flag is like your national fervor or nationality or something.
No, that's officers. Like how many officers you have in your army. Yeah, it's just so spreadsheety.
There's so much. This is one panel.
And that's just the resources of the game. Like, that's what you're managing, and
then here's how the game is actually won and lost. You've got you've got the 3 main ideologies. The 3 factions are who can win or lose, basically. And you're trying to draw the various smaller nations to your side. And it's so hard to figure out. It's not an easy game. Here is the tech tree. Here's one panel of the tech tree. If it'll ever come up. It's insane, but it's still a little bit easier than Hearts of Iron 2. But I have to tell you, I think Hearts of Iron 2 is a little bit more convoluted with regards to the tech. I don't know what's going on here. Hello, internet. We're looking for a screenshot here. Would you be able to deliver?
I look at the tech screen, and there's factors. So having researched certain theories and stuff before, like, makes your researching of particular things faster. And I'm just like, where mobile infantry reserves rank 4? Where is this under land theory? I'm like looking around, I can't find it. It's just insane. And I think this is one of those games that if you do put the time into it, and it's more trial and error, I think. So you have to kind of just get in there, pick a nation. There's a bunch of recommended nations to play around with. Like Brazil, I know, is one to start out as.
Brazil? What the fuck do you do as Brazil?
You kind of just sit there and not die. I think that's the key.
If Germany invades you, you lose the game.
Yeah. If you could fail diplomacy that hard and have Germany invade you or the United States invade you, you've done something wrong. So, it's one of those games that like is extremely complex. It rewards you kind of like trial and erroring and like kind of finding your way through the game. It's usually very clear on like why things happen. You'll usually know where you messed up. You'll be like, oh yeah, he just destroyed me with tanks, and I had no like anti-tank or anti-armor stuff ever in the game, or like he navally invaded me on my southern coast or something.
Yeah.
And I think these games can be extremely rewarding just because of the silliness and just fun stories you can create just by kind of getting dropped in the sandbox world.
So now that we finally got it, this is one tree. This is the armor tree. And then you've also got infantry, escorts, capital, bomber, fighter, industry, secret theory, land, naval, and air doctrines.
Yes.
And you're never going to research all of this stuff in a single game. You got to choose one or the other. It's an incredibly deep game. But I find myself wanting to play it every time I go back and start listening to Churchill's history of the Second World War. Because he wrote a history. He is the guy who said, history will be kind to me because I will write it. And then he went and did actually write it. And so I'm listening to him talk about all the behind-the-scenes stuff that happened in the British government before the war, and, you know, when it started, and how he was trying to get, you know, more forces for the RAF because he knew what Hitler was going to do and all this other stuff. And I'm like, man, I want to go behind the scenes and make all those choices. I want to go play Hearts of Iron 3. And then I'm like, I don't have a whole weekend to
20
kill.
minutes in.
I don't
You're like,
have
nope.
a whole weekend.
I crashed the economy.
It's over. My IC is gone. I can't build anything. They're invading from all over.
For some reason, we started a construction of aircraft carriers. I don't know why.
I don't have any planes.
You mentioned...
I built all the aircraft carriers, and they're like, when we get those aircraft carriers, we'll win the war, and they roll off the assembly line. I'm like, shit, I forgot to queue up the planes. Next year, guys, next year.
Don't worry, we got them in production. Just hold off the war for that long. Your infantry are like, we can't hold, sir. I think, you know, there's something alluring to history and being able to kind of dip your hands in it and kind of play around in it. And I think for the Paradox games, they're really good, and they let you do a lot of different things, but I don't think we've really had a game that really gets into politics in a lot of ways and lets you kind of like jump into that, sort of like Churchill having to rally support. Because like he was not only fighting enemies abroad, but he was also fighting a lot of enemies at home within, like, you know, the political splits in the government and the way, you know, the system is. So there's no game that I've really played that kind of has that sort of diplomacy, political aspect to it.
Speaking of diplomatic and political aspects, I see here in the show notes you watched a game of Twilight Imperium being played?
No. That is the Invitational.
Oh, TI3?
Yeah.
It's not Twilight Imperium 3rd Edition?
No.
But I had the whole... I mean, I was going to go right to the...
I don't know what it is. What is it?
It's a board game. Oh.
I've never played.
Never mind then.
Is it like Catan, but in space?
Sort of. If Catan had plastic ships that you used to annihilate all your friends after you told them you wouldn't.
Yeah. That sounds about Settlers.
It's basically a giant 4X game that is extremely popular but takes an entire day, really, to play. It's pretty fun. So, I guess, then, I will kill off all of the queued things and just go back. TI3, tell us about your TI3.
Oh, it was just... It's not like... It's not as cool now. I mean, kind of ruined it, but... Yeah,
well, no, but it was the big tournament this weekend with, what was it? It was StarCraft League... No, StarCraft Dota and something else.
Yeah, there were a bunch of different tournaments going on. TI3 is just Dota 2. That's the one hosted by Valve in Seattle. That was going on. Then there was like the World Cyber Games, or no, WCS was going on this weekend for StarCraft, and I know League had some big thing going on. So it was just a very, very busy like esport weekend for those who try to watch those things.
The Invitational. International. Yes. There you go.
The International.
Okay. So I guess we could head on here. So in the news, I don't know if you guys have looked at this at all, but EverQuest Next looks pretty impressive from what we've seen so far. Have you guys looked at any of the information that they've had released?
For which
EverQuest Next.
I've never desired to try to get near something that I've heard many people refer to as Evercrack.
Yes. Me neither.
My friend's parents almost split up because the father was playing EverQuest too much. So I've always had this thing in my mind of, nope.
I read like one article about EverQuest Next. Is that what it's called?
EverQuest Next, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm just like, nope, not reading it anymore. I'm done. Get rid of this thing. Get it out of here.
So you didn't like what the article said?
No, I liked what it said. I'm done. It's like, get it out of here. I don't want to hear anymore.
No.
Just get out of here.
What's impressive to me is they seem to have created the first Minecraft MMO. Because everybody's been waiting for it, and they finally have created a game with fully destructible terrain. Everything can be destroyed, including the ground itself, and they plan to have multiple layers of things underground that you can wind up falling into. So...
How does it come back?
I don't know. They kind of mentioned that it would just grow back over time, like the ruins would grow back to their former state of decay. I don't understand it exactly.
Because the worlds would be much shorter after a while.
Yeah.
Everyone would just break right through a mountain. Like, just run here, guys, Get by all the stuff.
I don't think it's easy. But they were showing earlier you could destroy the bridge, or when the warrior was doing his spinny thing, it was damaging something. So, the big thing about this game, though, is not only the destructible terrain, but it's trying to take what Guild Wars 2 did and go a little further with the dynamic events. Instead of having them be scripted and linked to specific areas, they're going to try and make things even more dynamic, where they'll simply release a group of NPCs into the world. Let's pretend they're orc, raiders or whatever. And these orc raiders will just move from place to place from wherever they wind up spawning, which could be anywhere, until they find a place that matches the description that is in their NPC AI file for, a good place to be. Like, maybe the orc raiders, the example that they gave was like, they like lonely stretches of road in the forested areas where they can hide. So they'll move around from place to place until they find this, and then they'll set up a camp, and then they'll make it bigger, and then they'll cut down trees, and then they'll, start raiding things and killing passersby. And there's nothing tying it to a specific location on the ground. So it literally will be different things happening in the world, not like in Guild Wars 2, where the same thing will happen in the same place over and over again. So that's pretty cool, if they can pull it off. They also plan on having the world evolve over time, and I don't know quite how successful Guild Wars 2 has been in this front, but, they have this idea of the kinds of things like, okay, a settlement has been set up over here, and there's a big public quest to go and make it better, and then a week later now it has walls, and a week later now it has a smithy, and a week later now it has, a great hall, and a week later it has this. So it has things happening over time to make it look like it's actually being changed. And it's all part of based on what the player's actions are. So if nobody does anything, the town never gets bigger. But like there are quests to go and get extra wood, or, make sure the area is clear of bandits, or clear of wildlife, bad wildlife, or whatever. So it sounds pretty interesting. But what's really interesting to me, because I'd never thought of this before, their system, their world builder, is based on the thing they're calling voxels. So imagine if in Minecraft...
Wait, you've never heard of voxels before?
Not particularly.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll stop stealing your thunder then, because you're about to say what they are.
Well, I don't know exactly what they are, but what they reference them as is, if you imagine the world based... In order to get the destructibility, they needed to make sure the world was made up of many different small pieces, essentially. And the way that they build the world, they created some tools that allow them to, let's imagine you have a Minecraft block, and you build a Minecraft block of a little, pillar. But you don't like that it's that thick. You can now shrink the tool and remove sections of it, or make smaller copies of it. So instead of having a single-sized block like Minecraft, the only thing you can build is this. It's a one-block size. Instead, you can shrink and grow the textures and the blocks, and then after you're done, you can smooth everything out so it looks realistic. All that footage that you were looking at earlier was built with these tools, so you can build ruins that look like they've been, sitting in the jungle forever. You can build, trees and all this other stuff, and you build it with blocks that then get smoothed out. And it's a really cool thing. And now they said these tools are so cool and so fun. They're going to release a program called EverQuest Next in the winter, which is essentially a massively multiplayer Minecraft, because it's using their engine and you jump in as an avatar and you just make things. It's not like adventure mode. It's like Lego building mode. Like, go nuts. Here's the tools that we use to build the game. Build whatever you want. Castles, towns, ruins, volcanoes, whatever you want. You just stake a claim and say, I'm building stuff here. And they're going to have contests to see who can create really cool layers for the big bad guy or whatever. They'll give you, here's his color scheme, he's a vampire, so make sure it looks like a vampire lair, all this other stuff. And they say, go nuts and build this thing and submit it to the contest. And that's just a cool idea. You might get your actual creation in the finalized version of the game. That's really cool. A way to keep your audience engaged.
Oh, that's neat.
That's helping, I guess, solve the problem with MMOs where they announce a bunch of stuff up front and then they have to kind of go in the dark for like years and never return until like their game's ready. It gets people involved.
I remember the closest analog I can think of is when they released the Creature Creator ahead of Spore.
Yep.
Also, a voxel is a term for like the 3D version of a pixel.
Gotcha.
It's like, the smallest atomic unit of display for a 3D QB world.
Gotcha. So, according to Deverin Shale? I never know how to say that. But he says that the world heals with earthquakes. I don't know. I think that means that the Earth will heal with earthquakes. Maybe the ruins won't come back.
Yes.
It would be weird if human towns would just heal themselves every time an earthquake came by.
Oh, it's an earthquake. Here we go. The walls are building themselves back.
You better not be standing where that wall was when an earthquake hits.
So I think they're doing something interesting in making an MMO that Germans will be good at instead of Koreans.
Just a little racist.
Just a little. Well, it's not our racism. When I was over in the Netherlands, I got into a conversation with a guy, and he was telling me, the Germans, etc. And I was like, oh, are you guys still mad about the war? And they're like, no, they come to our beaches and they dig holes.
They're the only ones that go to beaches and dig holes, damn it.
No, it's apparently a thing where they will take full-size shovels and dig 6-foot deep holes in a beach.
And just leave it there.
So there's...
Do they sit in it? Like, do they have a good old time? Just like, hey.
I think they just do it to dig a hole. It's the weirdest national prejudice I've ever run across.
It's pretty weird.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So, great. What the hell is Salty Bet?
Oh, man. I spent way too much time on that place. So, Salty Bet takes this game called Mugen, I think it's called.
Mugen?
Mugen? Is that the correct
I think I've always heard it as Mugen.
Yeah, and you're probably better off to explain this more than I am.
So Mugen's just a fighting game where all of the characters and moves are totally configurable. So people will set up sets of sprites and button inputs, and you can throw whatever you want to the game. It's like a totally customizable, configurable fighting game.
So you can just completely make your own character, essentially.
I was watching earlier, and like a Scotsman was fighting a character from Toho.
Yeah. So what they've done at this Salty Bets place, Salty's Dreamcast Casino, as it's called, it's basically like, I guess they've made this huge lineup from people all over the place, from anime, from like other video games, from pop culture. They had like the Lich King in there. They had all this craziness going on. And what happens is every like minute or so, it cycles through a match, and it will just randomly pair two characters against each other, and the AIs will play both of them. and it's streamed all live on Twitch like 24/7.
Oh, those are AIs playing.
Yeah. And so what the crowd gets crazy, like the chat explodes. People are betting all their money on like, Krillin or something silly like that just to win the match.
I couldn't even read the chat. It was flying by so fast earlier.
It seems to be down right now. It's not doing anything.
It's probably shifting characters. It takes a little bit, but
okay.
It's great. I've spent too much time doing it, and it's sort of the slogan of it would be mistakes were made, because you just make these huge mistakes where you think like, oh yeah, Godzilla's definitely going to beat Commissioner Gordon from Batman. Like clearly that would happen, and then you put all your money on Godzilla, and then Godzilla loses because he gets shot, and it's like, what just happened? These mistakes.
Yeah, the thing is, you can set the damage for an attack at whatever you want. You can have a punch that does 1 billion damage because everything's totally configurable. So you never know what person's going to have what move set.
So why is there any incentive to make your character not just punch a billion damage all the time?
Well, the idea was that you're trying to make a fighting game. They wanted to give people the ability to make a fighting game that would be fun and not just stupid.
Yeah.
I see.
And these guys have said, we're just going to make it stupid, and it's going to be entertaining because people are going to love it, and it's really entertaining.
Saltybet.com.
Yeah, check it out. You make an account, you get free money, you get free salty bucks, I think they're called.
Yeah.
And you can throw them away, and then you can't go below 10, I think is the lowest you can go. And they call that digging out of the salt mine when you're that low, because you got to dig out from the salt. If you lost all your money, you got to work the way back up to the top. It's pretty fun. It's just interesting. And it's like one of these things without sort of, Twitch or streaming and weird video games, we wouldn't have this like weird sort of entertainment that is just so throwaway but so amazing at the same time.
All right. So that'll take us on to our final topic for today. Right after we go through the meta moment. This Wednesday, I'll be streaming Kingdoms of Amalur. It's an extremely fun game to watch. The animations are very cool, very awesome. Definitely check it out. If you've never seen it played, it's definitely worth checking out. I have never actually beaten it. I played it for a while and then got into something else like I always do, but I'm going to beat it this time, damn it. I want to play it. Also, Tibret has something he'd like to pimp. What's going on tomorrow, Tibret?
Oh, so every Tuesday we go see something that was released the previous Friday. This week we'll be seeing Elysium. We come back afterwards and we hold in all the things that you want to say to your friends after a movie, and we record them on camera. Because, video games are a big love of mine, but I think movies might even be a slightly bigger love of mine. It's very close. They're both my children, and they vie for my attention.
Where can I see this movie night?
You could see it on my YouTube channel, which, because it's from the old YouTube where you had separate YouTube and Google accounts, like the URL's weird, I will post it in the show notes, though.
Okay. I know you can change the URL, right?
Not anymore, apparently. It changed it to, like, the name of my old YouTube account. It's a whole thing. Anyway.
Yeah, that was weird when they integrated like all the Google Plus stuff with YouTube's.
No, it's apparently not that long. Here, I'll put it in the chat as well. It's not live. We watch it Tuesday night, and I put them up Wednesday night. So I haven't missed a Wednesday yet, I don't think. 3 Wednesdays in a row.
There you go. 3 Wednesdays. Hey, who's that handsome fella in the center?
Oh, who is that guy?
Who's freezing the entire... Damn it, why is it... Oh, well. So we were there. We were talking about Wolverine. It was a good time. I was on it. I'll be on it tomorrow. But yeah, it'll be posted post-recording. There we go.
Yes.
Also, this week, let's see. Oh, later on, Puzzle Strike Tournament on 8/31, the last day of the month of August. It's going to be a lot of fun. And then that next week is the week that Rome 2 comes out, and I will be streaming the hell out of it on September 3rd, the launch day. So definitely check that out. All right. That having been said, there was a group of guys that go to PAX, they go to Kineticon, they go to MagFest, and they usually do panels at all these different conventions. You may know them as the Geeknights guys. They also have a podcast where they record a bunch of different stuff about anime and comics and gaming. And they had a panel where they put forth a hypothesis. And I will play a short piece of that for you right now, if it works.
All right, so the game makes the community. You know, who was at the keynote this morning? Oh, not as many.
More of you should go to the keynote.
Well, watch it online, right? But anyway, Jane McGonigal mentioned, right, that, you know, the research only works if you're not an asshole and you're not playing with assholes, right? Well, I'm sure everyone here has played a game with assholes before.
Yup.
Especially on the internet. Yeah, I'm the asshole, that's for sure. Right? And the thing is, a lot of people, right, they'll like a game, and then what'll happen is they'll say, oh, I don't want to play Counter-Strike, everyone who plays it is an asshole, right? I don't want to play Call of Duty on Xbox Live, everyone who plays it is an asshole, right? And the thing is, they don't seem to realize that, you know, it's actually the game that creates the assholes, right? The assholes, you know, it's not like assholes have a preference for certain games or whatever. Everyone's a normal person. It's just the game itself is actually psychologically controlling people and forcing them into a certain type of behavior that makes them a jerk.
So what do you guys think about this? This is their hypothesis. They went on to explain why they think that is the case. And I've got links in the show notes in case you guys want to check out their the rest of their panel. And I definitely recommend it. It's a very interesting panel. And I thought it was an interesting topic. So we might as well talk about it tonight. So what do you guys think? Do, crappy communities happen because they attract crappy, spirited players? Or is it because the design of the game forces people to act more poorly? What exactly is causing the Counter-Strike / Halo / League of Legends / Dota communities to be the way they are?
I'm gonna guess it's a mixture of demographics and mechanics. I don't think you can entirely blame mechanics, because there are certain games that have poor mechanics, but because of the demographics they attract, the community seems to turn out better. However, if you have good mechanics, no matter what demographic you're getting, it seems like it turns into a generally better community.
Mm-hmm. What do you think, Great? First impression.
I mean, I'm really torn on this. This is a really tough question. I don't think games necessarily make communities bad themselves, because I'm trying to remember the Call of Duty 4 community when it first came out, and I remember that being actually a pretty fun like thing to jump in on the weekend with my friends in. And then it kind of got this like mass appeal, and it grew, and the community got bigger, so a lot more people became part of it, but a certain component of that community, a certain component of it, became the sort of like focal lens, and that became sort of the identity of that community. And I think that is sort of like the thing here, is like these bigger games, these bigger online games. So Counter-Strike, which is a huge game, there's like 3 versions of it. It's been out for like over 10 years. Call of Duty, there's been one coming out for like 10 years now. These are big games that have attracted lots and lots of people over the course they've been out, but only a certain part of their community that has stayed very hardcore and sort of like with them has become sort of to the forefront. Because I'm sure there's hundreds and thousands of really like chill Counter-Strike and Call of Duty and whatever players all over the world, and as even on the flip side, there's probably really bad players in really good communities. So I don't necessarily think it's the game. I think it's more how large a community can get and what part of that community becomes emphasized by sort of the players within that community.
The size issue is an interesting one you bring up, because I've always noticed that the more popular or the larger a community is, the greater the percentage of that community seems like assholes. Like trolls, or, just people that, oh, yeah, your mom was great last night, her, you're a noob because you're using the op, or whatever. Just like whiny, complainy, trolly douchebags. For whatever reason, it feels like the bigger games always have a higher percentage. Or maybe it's just an illusion.
So are you familiar with the iterated prisoner's dilemma?
Yes.
Not the iterated version.
So when you have a prisoner's dilemma, which is you can choose to either go along with something or defect, in this case to be a good person or to grief. Somebody else has that exact same choice, and the end result being that there's a lot of math involved, but if the incentive where one of you cooperates and the other one defects is a big reward, if you both cooperate, it's a medium reward, and if none of you cooperate, it's a tiny reward. Mm-hmm. So in this case, if you're in a game where everyone's griefing each other, nobody's having any fun. If you're in a game where everyone's cooperating, you can have a lot of fun. But if someone else is playing seriously and you ruin their day, that one person's having a lot of fun.
The ruining person is having a lot of fun.
The ruining person is having a lot of fun. Everybody else is getting nothing. So when you have a non-iterated prisoner's dilemma, that is, you're going to see this person once, and it's this interaction once, and you never have to deal with them again, then why not grief? Because you get the big reward. There's no reason to go for the medium reward, because you have no idea if this person's going to grief you and give you the tiny reward. But in a place where you have a smaller community, so you're meeting the same people more often, you play on the same server all the time, there just aren't that many dudes, so you just happen to run into the same random guys over and over again. There's an incentive to cooperate, because you cooperating means they'll cooperate, and over a long period of time you'll average having more fun, because everyone's going for that medium reward.
Ah, that's an interesting way to look at it.
As as someone in that community, why would I always go for the median reward? Like, I would always want to have the best experience I can with that game.
I say medium reward, but the medium reward's still pretty good. It's not as fun as ruining somebody's day, maybe. But
right, what we're talking about here is somebody who would be a griefer. Not everybody would enjoy griefing, as their primary... that would be my best time, would go in and grief a bunch of people. Like, we're talking of the people who have the capacity to enjoy griefing more than playing normally. In a smaller community, the punishment for that is that you get kicked out of the few servers who are actually have good pings to, because it's a small community, or the people recognize you as a douche and they stop working with you, or they start team killing you because you were team killing them the last time around. That's an interesting way to look at it.
And a large community provides you with a never-ending stream of noobs who don't know your antics. So it
provides more anonymity. That's true.
Yeah, but think of the faces of these communities in a lot of ways. Like, you're bringing up these scenarios where people kind of choose these different levels to interact with others on.
Well, I'm not saying it's a conscious choice, but it's a part of game theory that I it's one of the few ones I'm aware of, and I try and apply it where I think it fits.
It works really well, but I'm thinking of why do certain communities get a bad rap? Why is that the case? And what are you pulling up, Bridger?
Oh, he's pulling up something I was actually going to ask him to pull up in a second, which is
John Gabriel's greater internet fuckwad theory.
Yes.
And they've revised this. For some reason I can't find the revised version, but it's normal person plus lack of consequences plus audience equals total fuckwad. And I think the bigger the community, the lower the consequences are, as you were talking about before. I think that's where that fits into this particular theory.
Yeah.
So, what about the mechanical effects in your community that can actually be programmed in? Because one of the things that the Geeknights guys mentioned was not just the rules of the game, but the rules outside of the game, the metagame, the structure of the leaderboards, the way that you win and lose points on your rankings in your competitive modes can drastically affect player behavior, and you can wind up encouraging your players to do shitty things to the rest of the community because that's the way you designed it. Can you think of any examples from any games that have proved detrimental to the game's community?
Oh, detrimental. I had a good one to start with. League of Legends ELO used to be that way. Not because people would kick you, or people would leave games, because there is a punishment for that. However, it became like a yardstick that people would bring out if they were doing bad in the game, where every time someone is doing bad, and somebody makes fun of them, all I ever see is like, whatever, 312 elo, check my star, 1320 elo, check my lol king page or what the fuck ever.
So that's your armor? Your armor is whatever?
Well,
I've got a higher elo than you?
It makes somebody, or like, 1v1 me, come on.
Yeah, like, meet me at the 1v1 middle. Let's do it.
Yeah.
I think it's a factor of, like, competitive nature of games. And I think that gets people in a lot more stress than I think they would otherwise. And I think that makes people a little bit more on edge, a little bit more victim to falling into that sort of trend.
Yeah, although League isn't too bad of an actor. I can't rail on League too hard because
they've certainly got a lot better.
Its cousins like Dota and Heroes of New Earth have far worse problems, like the fact that you have to like read a dissertation on the game before you can play the game.
Yes. Because
of all of the unobvious mechanics like denying. So
I was going to bring that up. I think barrier to entry can also have a major effect. Rogers says that if a free-to-play game, is going to have a worse community, I think that's just because those communities tend to be larger, and as we mentioned before, the larger communities tend to be worse off. But I think that barrier to entry does make a difference. If it takes a lot of effort to get to a lot of deep, fun with a particular game, I think you're going to have fewer trolls, because on an average, I think trolls and griefers have a lower attention span, and, if they took the marshmallow test, they'd grab that first one as soon as the door closed. For those of you not familiar, go and hit YouTube and look up marshmallow test. This is a test of your ability to withstand temptation. What's the actual phrase they use? It's psychological.
It's like immediate, like...
delayed gratification.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a test to determine how strong your willpower is at resisting things that you want, essentially. And a lot of psychological studies have been done where they take kids and put them in this room, and they sit a plate in front of them, and they put a single large marshmallow on it. And they say, so Tommy, or whoever, here's your marshmallow. You have two choices. You can have this marshmallow right now. It's yours. Or if you just wait until I get back, I'll give you a second marshmallow. But if you eat this one before I get back, I'm not going to give you another one. And then they leave the room and they videotape how long the kid can resist. And some of these are hilarious because the kids are acting like it's physically painful to not grab the marshmallow. There's kids with their hands on their faces like this, trying to just look anywhere but at the marshmallow. Like, if I just don't look at it, I can't. And then somebody else is just, as soon as that door closes, like, oh, nom, nom, nom. And what they do is they follow these subjects 10, 15, 20 years later, and the ones that showed a propensity towards being able to delay their gratification tended to be more successful. Now, this is by no means a cut and dry, well, you're going to Harvard and he's going to jail. Like, that is not how it works. It is a study that simply gives you percentages. It's like studying your family history and saying, okay, well, you have a higher chance of heart disease, right? It's not, okay, well, your two grandfathers had heart disease, therefore you will get it. It's just a matter of percentages. But that means that being able to contain yourself before you actually get to something you want is a method of, being more successful in life. And I think usually the people that are more successful in life aren't trolling. I don't know. Maybe that's just a poor assumption on my part. But I just remember back in the days of playing Team Fortress when you literally could not play the game correctly unless you went and learned how to edit a config file and you learned how to bind keys separately, because it didn't have a menu for binding keys other than the default Quake keys. You couldn't bind keys to your sniper rifle. You couldn't bind keys to zoom in and zoom out. You couldn't bind keys for your grenades unless you learned how to write a config file. So that was the barrier to entry. You have to be smart enough to go research and figure this out, or at least download something that somebody else has already made and learn how to use it. And as a result, I remember that being the best community ever. But maybe that's just hindsight.
You know what that brings up about TF2 was usually I'm totally against griefing. When people post griefing videos, I don't find it funny. But some what was the name? There was a team that put out a really popular TF2 griefing video.
Was that the one with where they built the sentry and the teleporter?
Yes. They built a teleporter to under the level, and they would set up a sentry down there outside of people's bases, and it would shoot at them when they came out and all that. And I think I found it so funny because they had to try so hard. It's like griefing wasn't easy. They had to go out of their way to find a way to grief. It was creative griefing.
The one I was thinking of was actually teammates on opposite teams colluding, where one would build a teleporter, and the other one would build a sentry gun on the exit.
Oh,
so
yes,
that when
that was
you
the
went
same
through
video.
one of them, oh, okay, it was the same video.
Same video. There was a bunch. So, TF2 was a game where it was hard to grief because it's very difficult to be not contributing to your team. And on a well moderated server, stuff like the only reason these guys could do this is because they did it on their own server.
Yes, they couldn't do it on a well-moderated server. You're right.
They were using what was normally a tool of controlling this kind of thing and perverting it to be a tool for the exact opposite thing. But 90% of the time it worked out. So
their server was a trap.
Yes.
Their server was a grief trap.
Yeah. But 90% of the time it was exactly the opposite. Not even 90, 99 point whatever percent of the time it was exactly the opposite, because if you went to a place, active moderators is a great way to reduce people who are trolling in your community. Having the same people in the same place, having that, there could be thousands of people playing TF2, but by going to this server, you're selecting to only play with a subset of them. So I think if you can artificially limit the size of the community in some way, such that you can start building relationships, because
why would any game want to limit the size of their community, though? That sounds like a death sentence, especially in the free-to-play sort of explosion that we've had in the past few years.
Yeah, the chat room
not limiting the total size, but limiting the number of people that a given player will see. So,
yeah.
So
if you play on a specific server that you like in TF2, you'll see the same people over and over again.
Yeah. There could have been 50,000 people playing TF2 at once, and I would have only ever seen 100 of them regularly. And you can learn their names, you can learn their habits, you can get inside jokes with these people. And, I think that's one of the reasons people were so mad when it was announced there would be no dedicated servers for one of the Call of Duties on the Xbox, right? People,
I think it was the port. It was the PC port of one of the Call of Duties wasn't going to have dedicated servers, and people were like, "What the fuck?"
And the one time I played TF2 online on the PS3, I was like, "What? Who are these people that are just doing nothing but running around in circles and putting up, all these random sprays and shooting at the floor and building turrets in really useless places, and why is this 12-year-old screaming at me, and why is nobody telling him to stop screaming?"
Oh, that's actually a really good point, though.
Where is the moderator?
You said, why is nobody telling him to stop yelling at me? And there's sort of there's two parts that we've kind of talked. We talk about more of the trolling aspect, people who are going to go out of the way to troll, but we don't talk about the people who kind of sit by and let it happen.
Mm-hmm.
That's because if you're the only guy shouting back, "Hey kid, shut the hell up," then nobody cares because there's no punishment. But if a moderator gets on and he goes, "Kid, I was your age once too, but you need to calm down, otherwise you can't play on the server anymore," that voice of reason is if that voice of reason is absent, then
I don't
things
know.
can go.
I don't think you need to just be a moderator. I've been in plenty of situations where there's been a really
peer pressure is worse.
Yeah, if everyone comes out and says "Dude, just shut up," and that person will be so embarrassed. They're gonna be so embarrassed at that point. They usually do shut up. I've had that happen a few times.
That could go one of two ways. They could actually be embarrassed by their actions, or they could just write off everyone that's telling them that as jerks or idiots or noobs. And once they do that in their mind, they stop caring what everybody thinks.
Well,
so
they
could
don't
go
care
either
what
way.
anyone thinks. So,
and,
like,
and
that's
for
the
those
point.
people, there is a kick vote. So there's kind of the rule by popular law, where, you know, even if you're not saying anything, when that kick option comes up, you still press, you know, whichever. I forget what yes and no is. It's F5 and 6 usually. I haven't played in
something like that.
Yes. You know, you hit F6 for yes or F5 for no, and you tell that person, like, I don't approve of this behavior, and you can get off my server.
Yep. So, one of the things that I thought was very subtle, but probably has a great impact on people, because it doesn't just impact the trolls. Like, let's talk the biggest community that I know of, and the biggest group of developers that I know of that have been working tirelessly to control and combat trolling and griefing. Control. So, is League of Legends. And I went to a panel that Riot put on discussing how they've been working to, you know, create mechanics to have a better community, their honor system, their tribunal system, etc. But one of the really subtle things that they did sometime in the last year and a half maybe, is on the loading screens. They'll have little tips. And sometimes the tip will say something along the lines of, people who get reported often tend to lose 40% more of their games than people who don't. You know, just little things like that that go, hey, if you're the kind of asshole that gets reported, that behavior literally affects your win and loss ratio. It's not how good you are, it's how much of an asshole you are that is why you are losing. Like, planting that subtly in the mind of the entire community, not just the trolls, but the entire community, means that people will respond differently when somebody starts to troll. And when somebody starts going, oh my god, stupid Jax, why can't you just stop dying? Instead of just agreeing with that guy silently and saying nothing, I've had people on the server say, listen, if you start this shit, we're going to lose because you and Jax are arguing. So just shut up. And then sometimes they do shut up. But the fact that people will actually come forward now and say, hey, arguing is why we're going to lose this game, not because Jax is bad. That's a shift in the society's view of what can cause people to lose. The actual arguing and trolly aspects that we don't like become the reasons for loss, and therefore are to be avoided in a competitive environment. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, and they've been promoting videos in the client recently that aren't even theirs, but it's other people who play their game talking about... There was that great video of that guy talking about a game where teamwork won back the day.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a very inspiring story. So they're big on not just in the game, but when you load it up, there's that video that you can watch and trying to reinforce that.
Mm-hmm.
There was one story I can recall where we loaded into a game and the tip was, are you going to be the one who challenges everyone to be more sportsmanlike? So we load in, and the first thing I say in all chat, in all caps, is, hey, enemy team, I challenge you, ... to be more sportsmanlike. And it started this, like, your mama's so fat thing, but, like, I'm going to be so sportsmanlike, I'm going to make Mother Teresa look like Mother Goose. And then just, like, that back and forth. So it's like... I love making the enemy team say that they like me before the game even starts, like opening up with something funny. So let everyone know that I'm here to have a good time.
And I don't know if it has an effect, but one thing that I've been trying to do in my games is if I feel like just reading the pregame chat that this group of people might be the kind that sort of deconstructs themselves midway through the game and just starts yelling and not winning the game anymore because they're too busy yelling at each other, is I'll start the game by typing in team chat, listen, if we start arguing with each other, we will absolutely lose this game. If we don't, we have a chance of winning. But if we start arguing, we will lose. So do what you have to do to not argue, including muting the guy who's pissing you off. That is something that blows my mind. Why is that not an option that more people take? I guess it's the ego, right? They have to defend themselves, and in order to defend themselves, they have to talk to the idiot that's yelling at them and calling them a noob?
Well, I think it's that the amount of actions you have to take to yell at somebody is less than the amount of actions you have to take to mute them.
I don't know about that, because the yelling goes back and forth for minutes and minutes at a time. The muting is literally a button click.
But think about it. In order to yell at somebody, you just have to hit enter and start typing. You have to hold down tab, mouse over the person's name, and check a box, or type in /mute, and then get the guy's name with the 3 X's out front, and the 3 X's in behind, and that symbol that you don't know how to type on your keyboard correctly.
Alt 1297.
Always remember that one.
I don't know which one that is. Don't try that.
I always forget the upside down backwards E. I never recall.
Or the AE, the combined A and E together.
Where is the umlaut?
But so one thing that I think it was Microsoft that did it on the Xbox, and I really wish that more people that the League community specifically would do this, is if you get muted by enough people over a certain number of games, people have to opt in to listen to you. Like, you should start the game and it should say so-and-so is starting the game muted because of past infractions. If you choose to do so, you can unmute them. And that only lasts for a certain amount of time, and then they redeem themselves, I guess. They learn their lesson. But that way, the people who you don't want to listen to anymore because you don't like them, you will mute them. And they will, in turn, try to avoid pissing people off, to avoid getting muted because they want attention.
Well, I don't know. Like, that sounds like a really attractive way to solve this problem, or help alleviate this sort of community badness, whatever you want to call it. But Dota 2 has something like that, where if you're reported enough, you can actually be muted globally from everyone. So when you get into a game, you can't use the voice chat, you can't type anything in chat. But that is such a detriment in such a team-based game. Like that, it's sort of hurts more than it helps in a lot of respects.
I don't know, if a person's getting muted in every other game, I'm pretty sure them not talking will be a benefit rather than a detriment to the team.
Yeah, but here's the thing.
I'm going to have to agree with Bridger.
It's used for sort of harassment now. People will automatically report you after a game just so you can be muted. So when you try to go into a new game, even though you weren't being mean or anything, they're doing it to sort of get on your nerves and just make you feel bad.
Or
and,
do it
now
because they thought that you're the reason that the team lost because you're no good, and so they want to punish you. I still think that's a better solution.
Now, see, there's where something like League's tribunal system might come into play, where you give a council of people access to everything you did during that game, everything you bought, everything you said, your score, etc. And before any bans go into place, you have to have your case seen before the tribunal.
Yeah, I just like the idea of an opt-in to hear people, because again, it's not that you're globally muted and nobody can turn you back on. If you think that it's good for the team, then you might opt in to hear this guy. But defaults are everything. If this guy's defaulted to being muted, 90% of the community will probably not unmute him. And they'll probably do better because of it, because it seems to me that even if somebody's trying to troll you and screw with you, there's not going to be enough people that are trolling you often enough to get you auto-muted. I would have to imagine you have to be muted in 50% of your games or more before this kind of a thing would kick in, and it wouldn't last a terribly long time, if you ask me. But I don't know. Maybe it's something that's been investigated and turned down, but I really like the idea anyway.
Also,
and Go ahead.
Notice the communities that we're kind of focusing on here that are kind of suffering from this problem the most. The sort of MOBA communities, these sort of free-to-play communities, the sort of online console communities with the very competitive, more competitive games. So even fighting games kind of suffer from this in some extent. They have a lot of, like I said before, roughness to the edges.
I don't know. I think fighting game communities have a slightly unique history because of what they were born out of. Like, fighting games, unlike most modern games, were born from the arcade, where the smack talking that was done was originally in good fun, with somebody who is next to you because maybe they were your friend or you see them there a lot. You could have a good-hearted ribbing, and it kind of has evolved into perhaps something different over time, but
it's still kind of like that in a lot of respects. That's why I say it's rough. So it's like if you're from the outside, you look in on it, you're like, whoa, this is crazy. They're just like making fun of each other the whole time. But if you kind of get into it a little bit and you kind of get to know how people's personalities work, you can be like, oh, okay, this is just the way they are. Like this is just the way this community kind of works. But it's I'm getting the gist that it's sort of these more competitive games, these games where people are more compelled to win, and it sort of puts a lot of stress and pressure on them, and just the sizes of these communities and like all these other factors are kind of adding to this problem. As Variety sees it as a huge problem, and they're trying their best to solve it. So I don't know if there's a way to solve it in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I mean, personal restraint seems to be the most effective, unfortunately. There was a great episode of Extra Credits that had a pretty good explanation for just that thing, where we don't get mad when we play a competitive game because it's competitive. We get mad because we invest part of our self-worth in being good at that game.
Yes,
and
exactly.
When somebody else invalidates that sense of self-worth, there's an immediate animosity towards that group.
You get hostile very quickly.
Yeah, and sometimes it can be hard to remind yourself that it's a game. And if it's someone that you like, it's very hard to get hostile against them when you're playing against them because you have all that built-up goodwill. But when it's somebody whose your only interaction with them was them calling you a noob and saying a bunch of like racist and homophobic things in all chat, when that guy starts beating you, suddenly it's not only an affront to like you as a person who plays games, but of like your entire moral code.
Yeah.
Everything that you know tells you that your belief in like equality and fair play should just divinely infuse into you the ability. Every Hollywood movie tells you that should give you the stuff that it takes to overcome this asshole.
But then you don't win, and that's the worst part.
Yeah. But then, and when you do win against that guy, it's better than sex.
It's glory. Yeah, it's glory. I mean, I'm not gonna lie.
It was said.
So great.
If some guy was harassing you all game and you get down to one tower and then your team rallies and you beat those guys and they're just raging in the chat afterwards, and you let it wash over your body in warm waves of pleasure. But
I think you kind of nailed it right on the head. Is like you just said, we invest sort of ourselves into these games in a lot of ways, and it becomes very personal in a lot of ways for a lot of people. I know it does for me a lot of the time. And that maybe, when you do beat the troll that's trying to like make everyone mad, or the guy that's really yelling at everyone on your team, when you beat that person, it feels good, but is that necessarily a good thing itself? Because I see that as sort of like the opposite end of the coin. So like, you beat this person, but you're still very personally invested in this game, and like that person might also be personally invested. So the reason why they get mad at people is because of how invested they are. This is kind of becoming a little diluted, I think. But
no, I think you absolutely hit it on the head. Competitive games, there are stakes. Like if you just jump into a random TF2 server and you lose, nothing permanent has changed. The map is going to reset, and you're going to be on a new team. Teams are going to get scrambled when the server changes the map anyway. So no harm, no foul. Nothing permanent has happened. But when you play in a ranked game, or even just a non-ranked game in LoL, I don't know if Dota's the same. I mean, there's a hidden elo, even for your normal games. And even if you never see a ranking based off of that, you still care that you are placed silver, in a normal game or something like that. But it's even worse when you play a ranked game. There's more pressure there.
Because it's visible.
Right.
That's it's one of the things they mentioned in the video that's good to point out, is having that stuff not go away is essentially a mechanic.
Yep. And it affects people's behavior. What's more is, in a MOBA, unlike many other competitive games, like Counter-Strike or Team Fortress 2, unlike those other kinds of games, or even in StarCraft. No, you don't really play Team StarCraft, but let's take team games. In a MOBA, if your teammate does poorly, it makes your job harder because it increases the strength of your opponents, right? That's how it works in a MOBA. If my top laner does terrible and he just feeds the hell out of his enemy, then when that guy comes down and I have to fight him later, I'm going to think he's power level X when he's power level Y, and I'm going to get destroyed. I'm going to make my judgment based on what I think is going to happen, and then, oh my god. And that's why you see people in the chat when they die and go, oh my god, X is so fed. Like, I was not expecting that, and it's thanks to my teammate that I died right there. Now, the real answer to that is, well, you should have paid attention and known that he was fed and made your judgments based on that, but excluding all that, you can still be worse for your team as somebody who goes in and dies a lot than if you were not there. If you had AFK'd, the enemy team would not necessarily have been as strong as they were after you died 3 times. Which means your teammates look at you as worse than a non-existent player. That is a weird thing to have in your game. A mechanic that makes you hate your teammates more than if they weren't there. In Team Fortress 2, even if somebody's bad, they're going to take attention away from you. They're still a good thing to have nearby. An extra soldier, even if he's shooting rockets at the sky and not hitting anything, when the bad guy comes around the corner, he might shoot at your useless teammate. Your teammate is a bullet sponge. But a bad teammate in a MOBA game, worse than not being there. That is a mechanic that is going to brew and create hate between teammates. Oh, yeah. Although, League does make some things, some mechanics to try to alleviate that. If a person dies over and over and over again, they're worth less and less. So there's only so much detriment they can do to their team. But still, your team, the game is like, you should hate that guy. He just made your job 10 times harder by being really bad instead of kind of bad.
You know what the opposite of that is? Or at least a close opposite of that?
What's that?
So you played a lot of TF2 as well. Mm-hmm. What class, regardless of player, was always at the top of the ladder during a match?
Medic.
Medic, exactly. The thing that gives you the most points on average, that gets you to the top of your team, is the thing that helps other people. Mm-hmm. I don't care if the points are biased or bad, or if a soldier wants to complain about how he can never get to the top of the ladder because he's not a medic. That's a good thing. It's a meaningless set of points. It goes away at the end of the match whenever the server resets, but it incentivizes people to be helpful. Mm-hmm. And I played a lot of medic because of it.
I play a lot of medic. That's because that's what our team needed. It's yes. Like my soldier bar is at like 110 hours or something, and then my medic is at 105. It's like riding right in there because whenever I had to play medic because our team had none, I always went and played medic because you can't win without a medic, damn it.
No, I was primary medic all the time. I just enjoy playing support classes. But I always thought that was interesting.
Prodigy says he doesn't get it why people pay attention to what someone says in chat. It's because it's exactly what Brett said. People are invest part of their ego in their ability to play a game. So when somebody attacks your ability to play the game that you've invested into, that provokes an innate defensive response. You're not just defending, yourself. You're defending your ego. They're insulting your core being. You have to respond. Unless you have a degree in psychology or at least took a few psych classes and can talk about it the way we're talking about it.
Yes. And then the opposite is also true, where if you've ever been complimented by a total stranger in a game, it feels tremendous.
Yeah. I try to do that too. If somebody, pulls off a really good dive on me, like I thought there's no way they can get me, and they time everything perfect and get their flash in and then use the Kale ult to get out of there, and they just get away with just enough health, I'll send like a wow, nice job over to them over all chat because they deserve it. They deserve it. Also, maybe they'll give me some honor after the game.
Yes. My favorite thing to say is, I'm not even mad.
Yes.
Not even mad at you.
I'm not even mad at what happened.
I'm not even mad.
I'm just that impressed.
I'm not even mad. That's mad. Good on you. I'm not even mad.
At the end of like a Counter-Strike round, if somebody was like the last man standing and he tried his best or whatever, and they got obliterated. Like he didn't even do anything right.
I just be
like, whatever, dude. Nice try. Like,
yeah.
what you went in there, you did your job.
And there's
it costs me nothing to say.
And
nothing.
It encourages people not to just hide, because that's a boring fucking round. If
that
people
I
like, I don't want to lose my AK, so I'm gonna hide and let everybody just wait there as the bomb is defused. No, try.
That follow cam is another kind of like oft overlooked important feature, because I know it was in the back of my head if I was the last guy standing that
yes,
everyone on my team is over my shoulder watching me.
So you better not fuck up, or at least you better give them a good show.
Exactly. And you know, it's a little thing, but it's in my mind when I'm playing that game.
Oh no, that's definitely like huge. That's like a huge presence. You know, like the 4 ghostly comrades you just died with or fought with, are like hovering above you, waiting for you to make that mistake, and you're just like, oh, I'm gonna mess up so bad.
Exactly, and you know that they're probably not going to yell at you if you do something bad, and they're all going to probably give you a pat on the back if you can pull it off, because you know they died. They're not in a position to judge you.
This is true.
Yeah, exactly. You have to carry the weight because they all failed now. Like you have to carry all that weight.
Gotta be clutch.
So when you go in that time, you get instantly shot. They're not gonna care. But like if you go in there and you knock out like 2 guys before you go down, they're like, yeah, but you got 2, whatever. You did
exactly. All right. So any other pieces to this discussion we might have missed? We're gonna wrap up here. But any final thoughts from you guys?
Wanted to make my last big point on demographics, because I said it in the beginning and then didn't mention anything about it this whole time. And I wanted to bring up specifically the Xbox, because the demographics of the people who owned the Xbox are predominantly males of a certain age. And so therefore, the kinds of games that attract the most popular demographic get all of them in one place, all of the anonymity, all of the testosterone. It's a witch's brew of bad times.
Yes. Yes, it is. Hence
whereas the PC, slightly older male audience, I find people are generally nicer because they've had a kid and may have settled down a bit.
Yep. Because anybody who can afford a PC, a gaming PC, and the games, tends to be more mature. Tends to.
Has proven that they can be maybe more responsible with money.
Yep. If only we got rid of all of... Yeah, you know, there's my... Okay, Bridger's solution to all game griefing. If you make it impossible to buy a pre-built gaming machine. Like, the only pre-built machines are shit that won't run anything, and you have to build your own, instant better community. Instant smaller community, but instant better community.
So you're totally circumventing the social fixes and going straight for the economic ones.
Yes. Not necessarily economic, but intelligence test.
Yes.
If you can't figure out how to build your own gaming PC, you don't deserve to be in our community of the PC gaming master race. Go buy a console, you shitty casual. I'm just kidding. So, all right. Great. Any final thoughts?
I think that we've kind of talked about where we pointed a lot out of mechanics that do actually influence it, so I guess I was wrong right out the gate. But I still think sort of the size of these communities, the demographics, as was mentioned, the people playing them, and how the communities sort of show themselves or present themselves all really affect sort of like all these things within that community. And I think those are very important, that it's not just like, just because designer XYZ said, let's make this thing, that's why the game is like so tense for everyone and everyone freaks out and goes crazy and you have trolls and 12-year-olds all over the place. It's not necessarily just that. That's probably a factor. It's not the whole story. So.
Yeah, some of the examples that they gave in the talk, like the predominant one that always sticks out in my head is when Heroes of Newerth was in beta, I guess they had their custom games that you would just like join. And LoL has custom games, but I have no idea why anybody plays them. But like the custom games was the way that people were playing it at the time. Maybe they didn't have auto match built in, but like it would show your score, so you'd enter a game and people would see that you were a noob and they'd immediately kick you out because they knew you were going to bring their score down, and if you brought their score down, then people would kick them out of games. It was this recurring cycle of, if you're bad, you're not allowed to play. And that was a really bad mechanic, that they let you see the score because that encouraged people to act like an asshole and say, no, you're not allowed in our game. We're better than you. But my final thought on this whole thing is, one thing that we didn't quite touch on is the more skill-based a game is or appears to be, the more people can wind up getting a big ego about being good at it. And they'll rub that in other people's faces, and they'll forget what it was like to be new at the game. A game that doesn't take any skill, you can't take any pride in, right? But if you have a game with a very deep skill curve, something like League of Legends that takes a long time to learn all the characters, learn all the abilities, learn all the items, or even TF2 takes a long time to really practice and get good at your rocket jumping and your mid-air shots and, you know, whatever, and knowing the maps. Once you get to that point where you're among the elite in that you at least have memorized all the maps, you have the knowledge there, and you're getting better at the skill side, having that knowledge is a burden because you look at what somebody does, and the number of times I see this in a League game is astounding. They'll just ask somebody, why? Why did you do that? Like, somebody will go and try to kill an enemy under the enemy's tower and then die, and their own team asks them, why? That is a loaded question. That question says, I knew that wasn't going to work out. You should have known that wasn't going to work out. Therefore, you're an idiot. That's what that question actually says. They think when they're typing it, they're asking, you know, why did you do that? They're saying you're an idiot. And that's because they have this burden of knowledge. And many cases, they probably would have done the same thing, and they were just looking at the aftermath of the situation. But any games where your judgment is based on knowledge of the game mechanics, like in TF2, should you chase that guy around the corner, or should you try and, you know, rocket jump with the flag, or will it take too much damage, or should you take the bottom route versus the top route? Somebody can look at you and say, I could see exactly what was going to happen, and you couldn't. What is wrong with you? They'll see you and they'll go, that is so easy for me. I've just referenced my internal data banks, and I knew that if you went up against that Jax on that tower this far into the game with that character, you weren't going to win. You should have known that. You're a noob. I'm better than you. And it gives people a feeling of pride. I'm better than you. But really, it's just knowledge. It's just knowledge, guys. Remember, everyone was a noob at some point. Try to hang in there and remember what it was like to think, oh, I can totally dive him right now, and try to get him under the tower and then realize after, that was a poor judgment call. Because the answer to every time somebody asks why is poor judgment. I just say that. Whenever somebody asks, like, why? Why did you do that? God! I'll say, it was a poor judgment call. I'm not ashamed of a poor judgment call. I'm not claiming to be the best person in the world. If I'm a platinum member and I go in a game with a bunch of bronze people and I die for stupid reasons, I can feel ashamed for that. But if I am in bronze and I make stupid mistakes and poor judgment calls, that's what I fucking do. I'm okay with that. I accept that. No, not everybody accepts that. So I think that ego in a skill-based game, especially knowledge-based games, can cause people to forget what it's like to be other people. I don't know if that makes any sense. There's your Bridger rant for the week.
That was a good one.
So don't forget.
Totally on point. Like, it comes back to you on so many levels as a player and as a gamer and as whatever you want to call yourself.
Yes, and until we get the world to agree to hold hands from coast to coast, we'll have to keep designing games with better mechanics.
Better mechanics.
All right. With that, I am Bridger. I'll be signing off. Remember, this Wednesday, Kingdoms of Amalur. Next Sunday, we'll be back with another general gaming show about, actually, I'm not sure what. But I'll probably have a lot of really awesome modded Skyrim footage to play while we're doing it, because I'm going to be working on that this week, now that I've got my new computer. And on the 31st, we've got a Puzzle Strike tournament. So we'll get more details to you by next Sunday for sure. And sign-ups will be posted by next Sunday as well. So if you don't know what Puzzle Strike is, check it out, fantasystrike.com. It's free to play. It's a board game that has a very, very solid and awesome-looking online implementation. You just sign up. You can play for free. It's a, League of Legends style where you can always play the free character for as many times as you want. But if you want to play the other characters, you have to pay a little bit or use your free tokens you get every day. Anyway, I'm Bridger. Thanks, guys, to Brett and Great for joining me.
Thank you, Bridger.
Have a good one, everybody.
Say something nice to somebody.
That's right. Be a good person.
Compliment a teammate.
Help your community. Roger said, fantastic show, guys. I think he just was happy that we were ragging on MOBAs the whole time.
Yeah, I think you like that. Tim came right in, he's like, MOBAs! I hate MOBAs! He's throwing like a spear, like, look, what's he doing?
I also saw that Will I subscribed to me on the YouTubes, so that's always appreciated.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Gotta
fucking turn on the AC.
Gotta put yourself forward. Gotta push it. Be like, poof. Check it out.
Yeah, I was looking at. Speaking of stats, I need to find a way of cutting down the times of my movie show videos, because the first one we did on The Conjuring was 43 minutes, and the
oh god, that was so bad.
What, The Conjuring?
It was terrible.
The Conjuring. I came out of The Conjuring feeling positive. What did you just like about The Conjuring? Anyway.
Oh yeah, we'll talk about it later.
Yeah, totally different point. But I look at the number of people who have watched versus the total minutes watched, and I look at the number of people, and I'm like, that makes me feel good. And then I divide minutes by number of people, and I go, that makes me feel bad. It's something like I average 5 minutes for a 40-minute video, and I'm like,
Yeah, I mean, YouTube is unfortunately not the best place for long-form entertainment. The kind of people that go surf YouTube are tending to be there because they're looking for something short to watch while they eat lunch or whatever.
Yeah.
15 seconds. You gotta get them.
We did an experiment last week, and we managed to keep our review of Two Guns down to 15 minutes.
That's pretty good.
Considering that we did an hour and a half on the Wolverine, it's very good.
Oh, wow. That's so long. That reminds me of Tales of Tyria. Like, early on, we were doing, like, 2-hour podcasts or something silly like that.
Well, we had a lot to say.
I mean, we were really excited.
The original idea for the movie thing was to do a podcast, and I was like, well, we're talking about a visual medium. We should have visual elements.
That's smart.
The
Good
problem
call.
is that podcasts as a whole are kind of dying, unfortunately. They never got easy enough for the general populace to pick it up. It's still only really taken care of by tech people.
You need like a YouTube for podcasts. If that makes any sense.
Well, the problem was that there was never a platform which combined the method of funding with the consumer. So on YouTube, anybody who makes enough, who makes a video that gets enough views is instantly have access to a monetization option from YouTube. Like the video platform that you use to distribute your videos is also the thing that you're making money off of, and YouTube goes and it finds advertisers for you and just hooks you up with them. Podcasts, advertisers only want to take chances on things that are wildly popular and or have a famous person's name on it. So like Audible and Hulu advertise on every podcast I listen to.
Yeah.
But it's because they pick the top 100 and advertise on every single one of them.
I think it's more that there's no centralized place where you go to get podcasts. Like, iTunes is technically the place you go to get podcasts, but there's so many people on non-i devices now.
Yep.
And so many people who don't necessarily want to go through Apple's approval process to have their RSS feed listed on a service.
Yeah.
But
it's kind of like pluses and minuses right now. So like it's very decentralized, the podcasting community, but there's a lot, like there's this huge variety of so many different things. It's very easy to do, I think, because of it. You're not all being funneled into like one place. But it's also kind of bad for like viewer exposure. Like you want listeners, you want people to like find your thing like organically, and that's hard when you don't have everything in kind of like one place for people.
That's true.
It's really just it's an accessibility thing. I think it never broke out of the tech people bubble. Like the people who listen to podcasts, of all the people that I know, are all tech people. They're all people who are on the computer a lot, on the internet a lot. They have a smartphone and they know how to use it. Like, of the people, the non-tech people that I know, none of them listen to podcasts. Not a single one.
Actually, one type of podcast is very popular, and that's music podcasts, where you have like a DJ or something kind of like mixing.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe like 45 minutes.
Just have, like a 45-minute to 2-hour-long continuous piece of techno. A lot of my friends have those.
That's very popular. Like that's probably one of the most popular podcast types.
But sometimes a centralized platform can lead to weird proclivities, like the same way that unintentional game mechanics led to denying. YouTube unintentionally gave us the jump cut.
Yeah.
What's the jump cut?
Do you ever watch Equals
Philip
3?
DeFranco especially.
Philip DeFranco and what's that other guy? Equals 3. Ray William Johnson.
So if you're ever watching a YouTube video, they figured out that silence was a killer for short form content. So anytime there was any significant gap between a sentence, they just cut it out. So they
feels like they're constantly talking.
It feels like they're constantly talking, but when you watch the video, it's like, I'm here, and then I'm here, and then I'm up here, and then I'll say a sentence, and then I'll be over here, and I'll finish that sentence.
Oh, okay.
So even if they screw stuff up, or if they just take a moment to gather their thoughts, they're like, no, that's not acceptable.
Yes.
And it actually is kind of a weird and interesting genre of its own almost, but it is, I think, entertaining to watch. It's a different kind of high-speed, coming-at-you audio format.
Well, true. I mean, the only reason that it's still popular today is that some people who got successful employed the technique, and then people watched these successful people and said, what are the attributes of this channel that I can incorporate into my own content?
I think more than that, though, it's about being lazy. Because you don't have to, write a script, because you can just talk and do a stream of consciousness without also being really cogent. Like, you can have breakdowns in the middle or whatever.
I would say that it's not lazy in that it exponentially increases your editing time.
Yeah, you have to do a lot more editing.
That's true. Okay, that's kind of true.
I way back in the day in videos that have been deleted from my channel so that I will never find them, had some videos that feature jump cuts, and they're time-consuming to do. Because you have to watch the clip, decide exactly how much you can cut out, like find the exact audio break-off point so that it flows nicely into the next sentence. And
well, I would say it's a lazy person's way of getting a much higher quality product, because the alternative is to be good enough to be able to speak constantly without having any major pauses or breaks, or you forget a word or what have you. I mean, we've been doing that for the last hour and a half, so clearly we don't need any jump cuts.
Somebody make a jump cut edition of this episode.
Oh shit, that would be terrible.
Oh man.
That would take way too long. Don't do that. That was like an hour and a half.
Save your time.
It was still a lot longer than I wanted it to be. God damn it.
There's actually one format. We'll never be on time ever. There was one format, if you're familiar with like the IGN Daily Fix or like 90 Seconds on the Verge or something like 60 Seconds on the Verge. They're like these quick sort of like, they use the jump cut technique, but they make it extremely polished and extremely professional. So it feels like a news report, but without like the delay in between, and without like the guy turning the camera over here and over here to talk. It's like very like straightforward. We'll change the image in the editing later on. Just keep talking. Just keep doing things.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, the reason it's so successful, it was a way for people of limited means, which at the time anyone who was vlogging wasn't a professional. It was somebody who felt they had something to say and wanted to do it. And if you're somebody with not a lot of money or experience, you can make a fairly high-quality product using jump cutting.
Yep.
It's the doping of the vlogging world.
Yeah, that's what I want.
I'm gonna go get a transfusion so I can jump.
Oh man, I was so totally not on the topic of anything. I was listening to NPR earlier, and they had a story about this scientist who discovered that there is a chemical that's really important in the inhibition of new muscle fibers forming. I think it was called myotocin.
Okay.
And if you inhibit the inhibitor, or rather, you make something that gets rid of the thing that's stopping muscle growth from happening, like they have these lab rats where they just removed the gene that produced myotocin, and they got insanely built rats.
Super rat man.
But did that mean that they just built so much muscle that they wound up breaking their skin? Like,
no.
That can't be healthy.
It's I don't think they care because it's a mouse.
Right.
But like, imagine there's actually a breed of bull that lacks this thing, and every member of this species is just the most jacked bull you've ever seen. I think I'm trying to remember the name. It's like,
oh my gosh!
Yeah.
What? Why science? Why?
Well, in the case of the bull, it's not science. It's
myostatin.
Myostatin.
Myostatin. Okay, so here I found a picture of one of these bulls.
Uh-oh.
And like every member of this species of bull is just jacked.
Does this happen naturally? Like what?
This is a naturally occurring species, as far as I know. They didn't indicate that it was genetically engineered.
So, if you got to take somebody on, these guys got it covered. Jesus Christ.
It's the Belgian blue bull.
That's crazy.
It just lacks a gene. So, even before they brought a drug to market that would inhibit myotocin or myostatin, the scientist who discovered myostatin was asked to go to Congress and give a talk on it, and a lot of sports, before there was a drug to do this, outlawed any drug that would inhibit myostatin production.
Oh wow.
So this was a huge concern. So now aside from, I guess EPO is the other big one with that athletes use to enhance performance. It's the one that gives you more red blood cells.
Oh,
interesting.
Yeah, but there's some people who are thinking that this will be the next generation, so that everyone can be that super jacked lab rat.
That's a great way to put it. The super jacked lab rat.
Huh. Wait a minute.
Somebody in the chat said, "Do you even lift, bro?" And the answer would be no. I don't lift. This is natural. I can't.
This is just my.
I can't stop producing fibrous muscle. I can't.
I literally can't. So I just realized that YouTube does transcoding on the fly to lower qualities.
Yes, it do.
That's something I kind of wanted in my Twitch for a long time, but I don't think they even offer that to anybody ever.
Oh, hey, somebody posted a picture of the mouse in the chat.
Uh-oh. Holy
that is
shit.
Let me see this.
Mouse.
Man, mouse, what are you doing?
And remember, shit's all natural.
Oh my god, that's like his skin isn't even there anymore.
Well,
it's just...
Well, they've skinned it.
Oh, they've skinned it. Okay. Gotcha.
They've skinned it so that you can see the muscle.
Right. Look at those fucking forearms.
Dude, Ratman?
It's
happening. We're gonna have crazy buff Ratman knocking down your doors at night. Fucking, I'm here!
We always thought it was going to be the sharks they were making intelligent. Turns out it's going to be the mice that can lift us.
What are you doing?
I never thought I'd have to worry about a mouse that could bench press a human being.
Just breaks you over his leg, just snap. It's like, my leg.
He runs over and punches the little mouse hole in the wall.
It wasn't there before, but it is now.
That'd be so great.
All right.
Oh.
Except not.
No, that's scary. Science is fucking scary.
Science can be scary.
What they want to use it for is people who have muscular dystrophy or other diseases where they're not producing enough muscle fiber. Also, people who have long-term casts. Like, have you ever seen someone who has
long-term cats?
Wow.
Yes, long-term casts. Where if you ever seen someone who's gotten a knee injury, like it looks like a chunk's been taken out of their what's that muscle on the back of the like a chunk's been taken out of their calf, just because that calf is atrophied to such an extent and it can sometimes never come back, just for having your leg in a cast for too long.
Youch.
So what they think is that by giving people a myostatin inhibitor for a brief period of time when the atrophy is going to happen, they can preserve some of that muscle fiber so it's not as atrophied when the cast comes up.
Sorry to interject here, but I must inform you it's about to be Sakura from Naruto versus Grover from Sesame Street on the Mugen stream right now, so get it there. Salty bets. I'm all in on Grover, by the way, so I'm going to be in the salt mines tonight.
Sakura versus Grover.
Now, Sakura from, you say Street Fighter?
No, Naruto.
No, Naruto. Oh, okay. Oh, God, where do I make account?
Grover.
I hit make account. I don't know why I'm streaming a stream. Who should I bet on?
Oh, man, some guy just put over 100,000 on the line for Sakura. It's not looking good for Grover. 5-1 odds.
I'm going to still put 300 on Grover. We'll see what happens. Will it let me?
Come on, Grover. You have to make an account.
I already made an account, but I think I can't put any more bets because they're already started.
Yeah, the match has started. Come on, Grover.
Damn. I was too late. Did get to put my bet in. Oh, wait, I can watch it here.
Oh, this is a close fight.
I gotta turn on the sound.
Sorry to interject here, but I must inform you it's about to be Sakura from Naruto versus Grover.
Oh, I can't turn on the sound because there's an echo. Turn off that, turn off that. There we go. Terrorist win!
Sakura won in fucking time end. That's lame.
Grover doesn't have the damage output he needs.
No, it
Why
appears
are
that he
there
also
floating
doesn't
weapons?
I don't know.
I think Sakura lays them and they do damage.
Oh, that makes sense.
Oh, she probably picks him up.
She's healing! Why is she healing over time?
That's what Sakura does. Oh, this is so dumb!
Oh my god! Big Bird pops in.
I'm going to the salt mines! Oh, Grover, don't let me down!
No, Grover's just gonna lose on health because he doesn't have any specials, it looks like.
I saw Big Bird pop up, that's a special.
He just, like, looks at me every time he attacks her. Like, you should be doing this at home.
Don't try this at home? Why did he turn into Mario for a second? What the hell?
Because people make these.
The best is when the Lich King, Arthas from World of Warcraft, comes out.
He like just flashes for just half a second.
He just instantly spins, and whoever he's fighting against dies. And, like, the music from in-game comes on. It's great. It's pretty glorious. It's pretty glorious. So yeah, this is what I've been doing my whole weekend almost.
Yeah, it's pretty apparent that Grover's not going to be winning this one.
Come on, Grover! I put on the Mario hat.
Doesn't seem like he just has much combo ability at all.
No, he almost won that one. It was pretty close.
That was close. Sakura's healing is really overpowered.
Yeah. All right. Let's close this out because now we've just turned into a stream of a stream. Streamception is happening.
So yeah, check it out. Salty Bets. Lose a lot of time and money.
Saltybet.com. It's what's the name of the game itself?
Mugen. Mugen.
All right. Have a good one, everybody. I'm gonna go tweak some more Skyrim stuff.